Our text this morning comes from Acts 16, 16 verses 11 through 15. We therefore set sail from Troas and took straight course to Samothrace, the following day to Neapolis, and there to Philippi, which is a leading city of the district of Macedonia and a Roman colony. We remained in this city for some days, and on the Sabbath day we went outside the gate by the river, where we supposed there was a place of prayer, and we sat down and spoke to the women who had gathered there. A certain woman named Lydia, a worshiper of God, was listening to us. She was from the city of Tyre and a dealer in purple cloth. The Lord opened her heart to listen eagerly to what was said by Paul. When she and her household were baptized, she urged us, saying, "If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come and stay at my house." And she prevailed upon us. Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for this word. Like Lydia, may it open our hearts to what you have for us this day. These things we pray in your Son's name, Jesus. Amen. Now, I think most of you are used to me preaching and starting off and just many different things. But today, I'm actually going to do something different. So today I'm going to tell a story. Our sermons are going to be some stories. However, the story that I'm going to tell today is one from the vantage point of Lydia, right? We don't know much about her, but we know what she meant in this particular passage. And so today, I'm going to spend some time talking from her vantage point. I knew what it meant to live in a city that understood power. Philippi was not just any city, it was a Roman colony, a place shaped by order, status, citizenship, and empire. Rome's presence was felt in the streets, in the marketplace, in customs, and the way people carried themselves. Some belonged easily in that world. Others learned where they were allowed to stand. I had learned to stand carefully. People knew me as Lydia, a woman from Tyre, a dealer of purple cloth. Now, purple was not an ordinary fabric. It belonged to people of wealth, rank, and influence. I knew the texture of it. I knew how it felt in my hand, how it caught the light, how it spoke before anyone wearing it would say a word. Purple could announce importance. Purple could open doors. Purple could separate one person from another. I made a living with that color, but there were parts of me still searching for something deeper. Now, I was a worshiper of God. That is what I was called. I was not born into Israel's covenant in the way others were, but I was drawn towards Israel's God. I had grown weary of the gods who could be managed, bought, displayed, and used. The gods of Rome had their temples. The gods of commerce had their rituals too. Profit, reputation, security, status. These were the powerful gods of Philippi, but they failed to give my soul rest. On the Sabbath, I exited outside the city gates with the other women. We went down by the river to the place of prayer. There was no synagogue for us in the city, or perhaps this is simply where we knew that we could gather. Either way, we went beyond the official spaces, beyond the center of civic life, beyond the noises and the pride of Philippi. We went where the water moved. There beside the river, we prayed. We listened. We waited. The city was behind us, but the presence of God felt near. I had gone there before, but that day felt different, though I could not have explained why. It's possible that God prepared me long before I knew it. Perhaps God was already at work in the hunger I carried, in the questions I could not put away, in the dissatisfactions I felt when business was good. Maybe God was leading me to the river before Paul ever arrived. The road to Philippi carried many travelers all the time, soldiers, merchants, officials, strangers. That day, it carried Paul and his companions. They came with dust on their feet and the message in their mouths. They did not begin in the marketplace. They did not start with the powerful men of the city. They came outside the gates to a place of prayer and sat with us. They sat down and spoke to women. In a world where women were dismissed, overlooked, or treated as secondary, Paul sat down as a teacher and spoke to us as people capable of receiving a word. He did not treat the riverbank as insignificant place. He did not treat us as an insignificant audience. The gospel came to Philippi first by sitting with women in prayer, and I listened. I listened to Paul as he spoke of Jesus. I listened as he told us about the crucified and risen one. I listened as he spoke of mercy stronger than sin, life stronger than death, grace wider than the boundaries people drew. I have heard many voices in my lifetime, buyers bargaining over cloth, men boasting about status, travelers speaking of empire, but this word was different. It didn't simply inform me, it reached me. Something happened, and I could not manufacture that for myself. The door of my heart was opened from the inside, not by my own hands. The Lord opened my heart. This is the only way I know how to say it. Paul spoke, God did the opening. Paul preached, God made the word alive in me. And that's where my story started. Before I opened my home, God opened my heart, not with my resources, not with my table, not with my hospitality, the size of my house, or even the success of my business. It started when God's grace reached me by that river. I spent years unfolding purple cloths before people of wealth and status, showing them the beauty that could be purchased. But by the river, God unfolded something in me that could not be bought. God opened a longing, courage, faith, and a future. After I was baptized, my household was baptized too. My faith did not remain alone inside me. It touched the life of my family. It changed the meaning of my home, the place where I had managed my business. Meals, servants, relationships, and daily responsibilities now belong to something larger. I said to Paul and his companions, if you had judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come, stay at my home. It may have sounded like an invitation, but it was also my confession. My home, table, resources, my life were opened. I was not simply offering lodging, I was making room for the gospel. In my community, there are some doors that open because someone has money, and other doors that open because of someone's status or they knew the right people. But the door that connected me to God opened because grace had entered my life. That day, the road from the riverbank to my house felt like holy ground. The same dust was beneath our feet. The same Roman city surrounded us. The same world of power remained in place. But something had changed in me. Like the river we left, something living was moving. When we entered my home, the ordinary rooms became something more. A table was set for unexpected guests. Voices filled the spaces. Bread was shared. Prayers were spoken. Stories were told. The gospel that had found me by the river now had a place to rest, a place to grow, a place to gather others. My room, my home, became a sanctuary. Now, I did not know what would happen next. I did not know how difficult Philippi would be for Paul and Silas. I did not know that they would be beaten and imprisoned. I did not know that another household, the jailer's household, would be also drawn into the story of salvation. I didn't know that Paul and Silas would later return to my house and encourage the brothers and sisters to gather there. I only knew that God had opened my heart, and I could not keep that door closed. Looking back, I see the gospel did not enter Philippi through the city gates. It did not begin in the halls of power. It did not ask permission from Rome. It began outside the city, besides the river, among women praying. It began with listening. It began with God opening hearts, and then it moved into a home. Maybe that's how the gospel often works. It moves from spoken word to an open heart, from an open heart to an open door, from an open door to a table shared, from a table shared to a community formed, to a community formed to a witness that can outlast empires. I thought I was going to the river to pray, but God was already there. God was in the restlessness that drew me in. God was in the questions I often carried. God was with the other women gathered beside the water. God was with the travelers who came with dust on their feet and the words that Paul spoke. God was opening my heart. God was there when I opened my home. And this is what I know. Hospitality is not just kindness. Hospitality is what grace looks like when it needs a room. Hospitality is faith when it refuses to stay private. Hospitality is how the gospel finds a home in the world. Before I opened my door, God opened my heart. And when God opens a heart, a home can become a sanctuary. A table can be a witness, and ordinary rooms can become the beginning of a church. Now, Lydia's story reminds us that hospitality is not a feeling. It's not only being kind, friendly, or welcoming people. Hospitality needs a place. It needs a door, a table, a room, a home, a church, a community. This is the one point that Christine Pohl makes in chapter 8 of Making Room. Welcome happens somewhere. If we say we value hospitality, then our space, our habits, our ministries should show it. People should not only hear that we are welcoming, they should experience that welcome through dignity, rest, and belonging, with the relationships we build with them. This is what Lydia does. After God opened her heart, what did she do? She opened her home. The gospel does not stay by the river. It moves into her household. Her home becomes a place where Paul and his companions are received, where ministry is supported, and where the good news can continue to grow. Lydia does not simply say, I believe. She says, come and stay in my home. Her invitation pointed to what she believed in her faith, which became visible through the act of hospitality. Her home was more than just a private space. It was a place for God's mission. Now, the reality is, we can learn a lot from this story. We can. And I know you stuck with me so far. Right? Today is not just the only time you've heard me say these things. And I really appreciate that. I really do. But I want to end this sermon a little bit differently. Because I want to tell you a story from a different perspective. It's actually from the perspective of someone you have not met yet. Matter of fact, they sent me a letter postmarked May 2027. I know, isn't that weird? Came in the mail, said Luis, May 2027. I don't know. But I opened it and I read it, and I want to share it with you. Do you want to hear it? Are you willing to hear what this person sent me? All right, I appreciate that. I was not there when First Christian Church Lafayette made the decision. I did not sit in the meetings, answer the survey questions. I did not hear the prayers. I did not see the search documents, the board reports, the worship plans, or the quiet conversations in the hallway. I didn't know how heavy this season felt. By the time I came through the doors, a decision had already been made. Nevertheless, now I know that it was not easy for them. They were a church in transition. They were walking through a search and call. They were wondering who their next pastor would be. But beneath that question, there was a deeper one. What kind of church was God calling them to be? They had history behind them, memories in the pews, prayers in the walls, and a beloved tradition that had carried them for generations. They had been in Lafayette a long time. They had served, worshiped, welcomed, struggled, changed, and endured, but they also knew that they could not live only from memory. Like Lydia by the river, they were standing in a place of prayer and uncertainty. They didn't have all the answers. They didn't know exactly what the next chapter would look like. They didn't know who would come. They didn't know what change or what God would ask of them. But they kept showing up. They kept showing up to pray. And somewhere in that season, God opened their hearts. That is why I am a believer now. Before they opened the door to people like me, God opened something in them. God opened their imagination. God opened their courage. God opened their willingness to listen. God opened their love beyond survival. God opened their table before they knew who would even need a seat. They could have been afraid, protected what was familiar, or waited until everything felt just right. They could have said, you know what, we're going to wait to figure ourselves out first, and then maybe we'll welcome others. But they didn't something else. They opened their door. Not just the physical door on North Street, even though that matters. They opened deeper doors too. The doors of welcome, patience, belonging, honest conversations, and of making room for people who were not already a part of their story. And that's how I found them. I came carrying more questions than faith. I was not sure what I believed. I was not sure if the church had a place for me. I had seen enough of religion to be cautious. I've been around enough closed doors to know when the welcome was only a word on a sign. But when I came to First Christian Church Lafayette, I did not only see a building. I saw a people who had made room. They didn't treat me like a project or rush me to certainty or reduce my questions or my wounds. They did not make me feel like I had to understand everything before I belonged. They gave me a place to sit, to listen, to breathe and wonder, a place to be known, a place at the table. And slowly, because they had opened the door, I began to believe the gospel might be for me too. I'm thinking about Lydia, the purple cloth dealer from Acts 16. She heard the word by the river, and the Lord opened her heart. She opened her home. Her faith became visible in hospitality. Her table became a part of the mission. Her ordinary space became a sanctuary. That is what First Christian Church in Lafayette became for me. A sanctuary. Not because everything was perfect, it was not. Not because they had every answers, they don't. Not because transition had been easy, it had not been. But because in a season when they could have turned inward, they chose to make room. They chose to believe that hospitality is more than friendliness. They chose to believe that welcome needs a place and that the table was not full. They chose to believe that God was not finished with them. And because they believed that, I found a home for my faith. I did not know the whole story when I first arrived. I did not know how much courage it had taken them to open themselves up to a future. I didn't know how many prayers had been prayed before I walked in. I didn't know that. I didn't know that in some meeting or worship service or honest conversations, God opened their hearts before opening that door. But I felt the fruit of it. I felt it in the way someone learned my name. I felt it in the way that the table was explained with grace. I felt it in the questions were welcome instead of feared. I felt it in the way old traditions were held with love, but not used as walls. I felt it in the way they made space for people that they had not expected. I felt it in the way the gospel was not only preached, but practiced. And that's why I'm here now. Because years ago, this church stood at its own riverbank. It came with its own history, its grief, its hope, its uncertainty, its longing to be faithful. And there, in the middle of transition, God opened their hearts. Then the church opened its doors. And when those doors opened, the gospel found room in me to grow. And I'm a part of that story because they decided the story was not over. I found faith because they made room before they knew my name. I found belonging because they believed the table could be bigger. I found Christ because the church became a place where welcome was not only spoken, it was embodied. When I tell the story of my faith, I have to tell the story of their courage. I have to tell about a church that did not wait until everything was just right before it chose hospitality. A church that did not confuse transition with death. A church that did not let fear close what grace was trying to open. A church that remembered the story of Lydia and trusted that when God opens hearts, a home can become a sanctuary. For Lydia, it was a house in Philippi. For me, it was First Christian Church in Lafayette. And because they opened their door, the gospel found a home in me. Church, this is our invitation today. This is not just for someone new, but for all of us. And Lydia's story, the Lord opens her heart, and then Lydia opens her home, her table, becomes a doorway where the gospel can find room to grow. The same movement is the call to us in this season, to let God open us again from the inside out, and then to renew our commitment to open our lives, our schedules, our attention, our tables, and our doors, so grace can reach others through us. So today, whether you are steady or wary, confident or searching here, this is a gentle but real call. Let God open your hearts again, and let your life become that welcome. Renew your yes to being a church that makes room. You can respond. You can respond in your heart. You can respond in prayer. Whatever God is calling you to do. Whatever you feel God is urging you to do. I pray that that story does come to you, that you do receive a letter one day that talks about how your willingness to be hospitable created a space for someone's faith to grow. I invite you to join us as we sing our hymn of discipleship.
It's a warm day today, but it's still spring for a while, and that's how God's love is. We want to pass it on to everyone. It's fresh like spring.